Hi. One of the advantages I have of going last is that I get to see all of the and listen to all the good things that are happening, and the theme is collaboration. And I really truly believe that promising practices are based in collaboration, and we are about to, and ours is literally promising practice in its infancy. We have done 1 year of pilot practice, but we're very proud of what we've done, and we're really happy that we get to share it. And I guess for me, the reason why it's important is our sergeant came into our unit with this vision that he wanted to have a camp for young people that would not necessarily have the opportunity to develop their leadership. And I tell you this because every one of you in this room sometimes has a seed. You have something that you want to do in your life and you wonder if it will ever evolve. But in order to know that, you need to share it. And then you surround yourself with other people that come into your vision and say, we can make it happen. And so began the process. And our project actually was developed by the students of Laurentian University Social Work. So they've done the research to make sure that we were following the resiliency-based strategies. So we did 2 camps last summer with 32 youth. And it was interesting for us as facilitators. So we had myself, who came primarily from education. We have members of the Grey Star Police Service. So police, as you heard, have a lens of where they look at things. And then we partnered with the Northern Youth Services, who work with youth that were in custody. So they have a different way in which they work with young youth that are promising. And then we worked with probation. The first group we had were very kinesthetic and very active, and thank goodness we were outside and outdoors and they had all this energy, and we certainly were at the end going, wow, right? Most and primarily active boys. The second group was more on the introspective. They were calmer, they were different in their learning styles, and it was like we had gone on a vacation to an exotic island on the beach. And then every time we bring them back, we remind ourselves, each youth is different. What we didn't know is sometimes a group coming together feeds off each other, and then they are different, which then responds on how we work with them. So head, heart, and feet is how they evaluated it. The adolescent program, quality service, and photo voice. We wanted to know if it was working. So we used creative ways to get their feedback. So head, heart, and feet, they told us what they thought about the program, how they felt about the program, and what they learned and what they were taking back with them. Every day we took pictures, hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and they took hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and they got to choose a picture every day what would talk to them about what they learned, and we made collages of the project. So we needed to know if we were being successful, and according to the young people, we were. So here's your head, heart, and feet. These are the comments that that they gave us. And I want you to look at the faces. Because you have to remember, these are kids whose lives are sometimes not going as well as you would like them to be. And they came together and really didn't know each other. And they didn't know us. And they came to a place in our community that's known as a custody facility. And some of them came and they said, this is where kids who get in trouble have to come when they're going to jail. So imagine being a young person thinking you're going to a leadership camp, and this is your perception of where you get to go to a leadership camp. So here's a survey. This is what the culmination is. We got 5s and 4s at the end. And there's the photo voice. Those are some of the pictures so you can see some of the activities that we participated in. And I got to share with you, it's not just the young people that are going through. So you see the one right there where they're climbing, they're on a what do you call it, swing. Some of the facilitators are afraid of heights. Some of the facilitators are 64 years old and have not climbed a tower. But what we did is we showed our vulnerability to the young people. And what happened was we learned when we were working together, whether we were young, medium, or old, if we were there in each other's corners, we could grow together. and it was challenged by choice. You didn't have to do it if you didn't want to do it, and we would encourage. And if you chose not to do something, you were not ostracized. You were a part of the other part. So if you're being ballet, you were a belayer. So you were still a part of all the program until you got to the level that you wanted to get to. And we learned a lot about the Indigenous teachings, and we had an elder come in and tell his story. So it was really important in watching. And I want you to think about young people. Again, we don't know their story. And an elder is coming and telling his story in the cultural teaching, and not all young people who were in our camp were Indigenous. In fact, I would say maybe 4 or 5 of the youth were Indigenous. You could hear a pin drop. They all listened, and they listened to the story of the elder and related to his story, if not for them, for their parents or their caregivers. And they saw the connection. And they saw the connection that sometimes bad things happen, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And so we have to remember, they listen, and we grow. So our goals were to promote positive youth development, increase youth engagement with supports, increase skills and abilities. And again, I can share with you that has happened. This past, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, we brought both groups together. So now we have our kinesthetic group and our introspective group coming together for the first time. And you would never know that this was a group of 2 camps that did not know each other. So within the first 20 minutes of the camp, it was like they had been together in the summer through that 4-day camp. So here we are, 15, 16. That was our initial research. That was a time when we started doing all the information. What are we going to do? What does it look like? And Greater Sudbury Police Service does not have a facility to run a camp, and we reached out to find a partner. Northern Youth Services makes the most sense because, as many of you know, many young people are not being put into close custody or open custody where they have to stay overnight. So we have this beautiful facility, and we have some amazing people who know how to work well with young people. And I'll give you an example. The first time we came together in the gym at NYS, so I'm a teacher, that's my background. I have police officers on one side, I have the youth workers from NYS, and we have a punching bag hanging down from the ceiling with the kinesthetic workers, and they're climbing. So you have to understand, they're climbing and they're hanging and they're doing all this stuff, and I'm sitting there going, so do we go over there and say you shouldn't be hanging and climbing because you might fall and get hurt? So the police officer, they want to say, we should tell them to get down because they're going to get hurt, and that's a rule. And we had the NYS people who, that's where they work, and they're going, well, kids are just being kids. So it was during our debrief that we started to have the conversations around how do we, with 3 different ways of looking at the way young people respond, work together so we're consistent. You know, moms and dads, guardians working, teachers and principals, everyone working together. It's not that we have to be exactly the same, but we have to be consistent in our messaging and supporting them and caring for them and making sure that they're safe. So it was a very interesting observation. They don't climb anymore upside down because there is a fall that could happen. So we continue with Laurentian. Laurentian students continue to develop the program. We are developing the second level. So there's a second level. I'm just going to tell you about what we've done, but we're moving towards the development of the second level. And then in 2017, okay, so we've added official partners. We had a partner meeting. We reached out into the community because, as you've heard, collaboration takes more. We invited 30 community partners to come together. We don't have transportation for these young people. So if you're looking for young people that are sometimes struggling and can't get to go to leadership camp, some of them don't come from homes that don't have vehicles. They don't have ways of transportation. And that's something we're still working on. We do a community meeting and someone says, I can help you with that. We had a young person of color. We didn't have anyone who looked like him. And so someone from the community came in of color and said, you need to make sure that everybody can see themselves in the facilitator. We're not a very diverse community as you are in Southern Ontario. We're getting more diverse, but we're not. And the reality is, every young person has to see themselves. It can't all be European-based facilitators. We have to have indigenous people. We have to have people of color. We have to have the different cultures so that when the young person comes, they see themselves. They see that they're a part, and so we learned that from one of our community partners who is now going to come and be a part of the program so that we know that no matter who comes, they feel comfortable. So it's an advantage you have in Southern Ontario. You're very diverse. Where we are, we're becoming diverse and we're becoming more knowledgeable about what that means to be diverse and inclusive. The lessons learned, we are going to lower the age. We started with grade 8, so I heard that mentioned before, why are you starting with 12-year-olds? So we're gonna start in grade 6, and there's lots of reasons to start in grade 6. Part of it is brain development. Those of you that are familiar with the brain development, the prefrontal lobe, it's not completely developed until you're almost 30. It's that time period from grade 6 moving into grade 7 where the young people are still able to hear us and want to be a part of what it is that we're trying to tell them. Adolescence, going into puberty, the brain starts again, and it starts that function and all the different synapses are going off. So sometimes they make choices and decisions not because they're wanting to be mean or they're being disrespectful. It's just that whole process of the brain. So if you start when they're in grade 6, we have a better way of hooking them in. So starting this summer, we're going to do grade 6 students, and our pilot program, which we're grade 8, we're going to continue with them to pilot through till we finish the program. We also want to continue with defining the responsibilities of each of our partners. And we're going to maintain the partnership with Laurentian because they know about research. And Windico training is a place where some of the facilitators went, which is all that interactive and resiliency based. So we want to keep that connection so that the facilitators understand the kinesthetic learning, understand the resiliency building. And let's see, what's the other one? Alternative activities in case. So for example, when you're working with a kinesthetic group that always wants to move, we didn't necessarily have a backup program. We have blue algae. We do a build a boat, which means the young people have to build a boat. We have to go do a race in the boat, and then guess what? Blue algae means you can't go in the water. So we had to find an alternative beach to go to so that the young people could put their boat in there. If we didn't have one of the facilitators, I'm not sure we would have problem solved. So we always want to now have backup in case something happens. And we were very fortunate with the weather. Rain or shine, they're outside, but if there's thunder and lightning, then we won't go outside. And that's us. So if you're Cheryl Canelli, Constable Cheryl Canelli, and CSP Roxanne Sauvé are two of the facilitators. Constable Helly Wilmot, who's on the committee, is also a facilitator, so if anytime you have any questions or anything that you would like to talk to them about, they're here. My partner, unfortunately, isn't here from NYS because we have freezing rain 2 days in a row, and his flight got canceled and he had to drive, so he's on the QEW right now. So Paul Charette, who's from Northern Youth Services, is somebody you can also access, and he can tell you the NYS experience. Is there anything you guys want to add? Anybody have any questions? It's the end of the day. They want to go to their wine. I know.